Storytelling. Thanks to all who are joining us today. I'm Jessica McFadden. I love helping do our LinkedIn Lives. And if you're not familiar, I am the head of marketing at Stories Incorporated. And Stories Incorporated is an employer branding and recruitment marketing agency and content studio. And this year we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary.
Yay!
So since 2012, we have been uncovering powerful stories of employee experiences and bringing those to life through engaging content. We capture stories that show what's unique about an organization's culture, and then we connect those stories back to brand messaging, corporate values, purpose, etc. So we do a lot of videos and we create other digital media too. And we're really excited to talk about today something that's kind of central to all of the work we do. And that's why we're joined today by Jill Shabelman, who is a Stories Inc. partner and director of client services. Thanks for coming.
Hi, Jessica. So happy to be here.
So I know that before coming to Stories about 4 years ago, you were intimately acquainted with the challenges of employer brand managers who are joining us today and other people who are culture communicators and involved in the space. Can you tell us about your background a bit?
Sure. I'll say aware of the challenges, but also the fun of these jobs. So before Stories, I was a recruitment marketing manager at Deloitte, where I also was a recruiter for experienced hire efforts, university recruiting. I've done university recruiting in other organizations and have done so many other things from public relations to higher ed. So lots of things before coming to Stories. But at Stories, I've been here for, I think, just actually over a little 3 years. And I guess what you could call me, what Jessica calls me right now, is our head story specialist. So I lead our team of project managers and content strategists who work with employers and their employees to interview storytellers, uncover great stories, and bring them to life.
Thank you. So those stories are vital to employer branding and recruitment marketing, as everybody who's joining us today knows, but they're also key content to use throughout an entire organization. And that brings us to our topic today, which is organizational storytelling.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about organizational storytelling. We'll talk about what it is, what are the benefits of it, how it helps to activate your employer brand. I know we don't have to do a hard sell with this audience on that, but we'll touch on it. We'll talk about ways to capture your stories globally, so you're hearing voices from all your people. And then most importantly, how you can lead the charge on organizational storytelling in your company or organization.
Awesome. So maybe you could start. I know that a lot of us have a different definition in our brains about organizational storytelling. We have a general idea we're aligned on. Can you give us our official definition for our purposes today?
Yeah, so organizational storytelling to us helps to surface important cultural moments or corporate decisions that impact people and uses these stories to engage all different types of audiences, all who have some kind of investment in your culture. And so that's definitely employees, it's definitely candidates, but it can also be people like alumni, customers, and even investors. And so there's lots of benefits to an organizational storytelling approach. It creates alignment in your company with anyone whose role touches the idea of storytelling or employee storytelling, which creates better cohesion. What I love is it means no waste. And so when you're doing a storytelling project or you're working with employee storytellers and you're working with more than just employer brand, stuff doesn't get left on the cutting room floor as much. You're able to use more because more people are getting value out of the work that you're doing. And then most importantly, it could mean sharing budget and sharing dollars to get these projects off the ground. And so the idea of organizational storytelling really goes beyond using employee stories for employer brand and takes them as more of the centerpiece or the foundation of an organizational storytelling strategy.
Okay, and I think we have a visual that we've developed of how that looks. So let me pull up and share my screen.
Sure. So while you do that, I was taking an exercise class this morning and the instructor said, this is a simple movement, but it's not easy. And I think that's the same for this idea of organizational storytelling. It's simple, but not super easy, let's be honest, but it's powerful. So as you think about the story flow and how this all works, it starts on the left-hand side here of just capturing stories from your employees around the organization. Those stories then funnel into a content library. So all of the assets that you create that are focused on these employee stories And then that content applies to so many different use cases from talent attraction and beyond. And those use cases are directed at different audiences. And so our message here today is that the stories that you're telling, the employee stories you're uncovering, have so many use cases, so many audiences, it's truly endless.
And I know that, I should have mentioned this earlier, but we have Bernadette of Stories, who's also on the marketing team, is in our chat today. So, hi, Bernadette. What's up? And she's going to be sharing some of the assets for people who are watching either this live or in your own time. So you can see in the comments or follow along in the live chat some of the links of these assets. So if you want to have that graphic, to use and, put Jill's strategy to use, Bernadette's dropping it there, and we'll be linking throughout to everything we're referencing. So hopefully that's helpful.
Great.
All right, so we're gonna make sure we have our graphics. That's cool there. Okay. So how can employer branding teams create this collaborative story library ideal?
Sure. So as you're working on projects that are related to employee storytelling, and you're gathering these stories and creating content, the content that you create, it not only helps to share culture, clarity to talent audiences, the stories that you uncover can go so many places. They could be used by internal comms, DE&I, corporate comms, marketing, and so many more in terms of whoever is communicating internally or externally with different audiences. And so while it can be tempting to just sort of stay siloed and use your content library strictly for employer brand or talent attraction purposes, we really encourage you to invite other stakeholders into your strategy. And so on this graphic are just a couple of different stakeholders or people in your organization who could also benefit from employee stories to really create this organizational storytelling approach. And so proactively show them the stories you're creating, give them ideas for how to use it. And this turns what was just an employer brand content library into a collaborative story library. And what we've been saying with this is that employer brand professionals are really the stewards of the story. And that's really powerful and pretty cool.
It is. All right, I'm gonna pull that away there. So I think we have an example of this in action to, illustrate this next. So this is a video from one of our partners, Choice Hotels, and they are using this approach. Am I right? And can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So we working with Choice Hotels to uncover some stories around their tech associates and what it's like to work in tech at Choice Hotels. And through that, we stumbled on this story in an interview that was just a really great culture story. And I think this is a really good demonstration of how you could use employee stories in a wider approach. And so we'll watch the video and then talk a little bit about takeaways.
Okay, let me pull this up. And we're just going to start it kind of midway through, just to we're not going to show full videos in most cases today, just to kind of give you, a sense of what we're doing. We only have a limited time. Everybody's so busy. But Bernadette will be sharing in the chat links to the full videos if you'd like to watch them further.
Part of the communities that we're in. I am the co-chair of our Pride group. We bring education to our internal communities, as well as making sure that our benefits are designed to cater to every associate. An example of that is the bathroom stalls that specifically say self-identified. So it lets somebody that is entering this building know that you get to be who you are and you get to show up authentically. We had an associate who was struggling with the decision that they were making in their life and very worried about how that was going to play out specifically in the environment. We were able to, one, provide that safe space, provide encouragement, provide acceptance and belonging. We also made sure that we had a great plan of action to make sure that the rest of the environment was a safe place. Choice has shown us over and over again that we can be represented, accepted, appreciated, and shows up for us.
All right.
Yeah, so what I love about that is Choice's sort of approach or organizational promise to individuals is they want everyone to feel welcomed, wanted, and respected. And this video shows that in a number of ways and could be used beyond employer brand. And so obviously it could be used in talent acquisition for potential candidates, could be used in onboarding for employee orientations or in onboarding communications to sort of highlight an ERG or highlight what the culture is like. Internal comms could use it to celebrate Pride Month or the Pride ERG. Marketing could include it on a D&I website on their, like a page on the website. And even customers could maybe resonate with this. Choice wants anyone who walks into a property to feel this way too. And so customers seeing this could extrapolate that they take care of their associates, which means they'll take care of me as a guest. And so I think so many use cases for content like this.
That's so powerful. And thanks for showing us all the different ways, in action. Now, you mentioned that we're going to have show attendees here today, that we have 3 ways organizational storytelling can serve employer brands, right?
Yeah. So let's talk about it. So the first one is low-hanging fruit for folks probably watching this, and that's through EVP activation. So organizational storytelling is really the best approach to employer brand activation because it connects things like your core values, your mission statement, your EVP pillars to the lived employee experience. And what other groups in your organization don't want great content about things like values and mission and purpose? And so these are things that are felt internally and externally, and it's important to have this cohesive feel throughout the organization. So creating employee stories to do EVP activation or to really support your employer brand messaging is really a foundational way to take a first step and get started with organizational storytelling.
Thank you. That's so great. And we have some EVP resources we can share if anyone's interested. I know that you've done a lot of work with the project team about using employee stories to activate the EVP and the pillars and values and such.
Yep.
You also have mentioned that organizational storytelling can be used to help change a brand perception or grow awareness. Can you tell us now?
Yeah, so another instance of this is, sometimes an organization needs to change the way their culture is perceived or an audience perceives them, whether it's in their employer brand or their overall brand. I mean, this could be something like you're opening a new facility or a new business area and you need to attract talent who wouldn't think of you otherwise. Or if your culture is something that you feel like not enough people know about in the market. So an organizational storytelling approach takes these team member stories and helps to change perceptions or grow awareness in areas that you just may not be known for. And so we have an example of this that we want to share with you. It is from Lockheed Martin, and they came to us wanting to do a project that really focused on women in engineering to highlight what are the paths and what is the growth opportunities for women working in Lockheed Martin. And so this is a short version of a longer video. It's with 2 women at Lockheed Martin who are identical twins, which is super fun. But let's watch that and then we'll talk a little bit about it.
Okay, great. Let me pull that up for us.
My leaders have always been good at making sure that I'm engaged and making progress and feeling satisfied in my roles. I've seen some very talented, empowered women elevate into very key positions in the company. And so having those role models to be able to look up to and mentor with, has truly changed the culture.
All right. I love that. It's so great. And that's just, our social. Whoa.
I've been always looking for
We're getting excited and showing our next video. So that's just like a social optimized, like social version of a longer story that the team developed.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, this helps show something different about the Lockheed Martin culture. So it's, we're seeing 2 female engineers, award-winning engineers, like we see one of them holding up an award. And what's kind of cool is we see them in their home, not just like in their office environment or their manufacturing environment, but we see them at home. We see them in the environment that is comfortable for them. And to me, this really builds trust with potential female candidates and even internal employees, internal women engineers to really reinforce those ideas of you can be mentored, you can grow here, and you're supported here. So there's lots of things that content like this that can do, but I think it really helps to champion how people contribute to their environments.
Well, thank you so much. Now, Jill was one of the leaders on the Stories Incorporated team of developing a way to capture stories when we couldn't travel. And that's our virtual storytelling session offering. And this aligns with the third way that you've talked about organizational storytelling building brand, because it allows for a global story to be told, right?
Yeah. So the silver lining of COVID for us was we had to figure out how to tell stories globally when we couldn't be there in person. And so we created virtual story sessions where we interview people from really all corners of the world, and we do it remotely. And so we're still doing that to this day. We do it every week with people all over the world. Another thing where it sounds simple but not easy, but it's an amazing way to bring employee stories together to create content that really shows the voice of all of your people. So as you think about sort of elevating your work from, uncovering employee stories and sharing them, but really thinking of like, how does this become an organizational storytelling approach? You really need to include voices from everyone. And so that means around the world, across your locations. And so whether you can do it in person or you need to do it virtually, there's so many capabilities now to allow you to tell the stories of all of your people, which I think is really important.
Oh, thank you so much. So we have an example. I started to play it a little too quick of this global organizational storytelling in action.
Yeah, I'll tee it up just a little bit. So as you're getting that going, so we partnered with Intel around the Tokyo Summer Olympics on a campaign to highlight the elite athletes who work at Intel. These are Olympic medalists. They're people at the peak of their sports career. This has definitely been a highlight of my work career, getting to do a project like this. But this was a project driven by employer brand, but it can support so many different goals for different stakeholders across the organization. So we're celebrating the accomplishments of these athletes, which is really great for internal comms and communicating about what unique employees are doing at the company. It also connects storyteller sports performance to their work at Intel. And so it's also great, again, for talent attraction, thinking about getting more elite athletes into the organization to see how they can translate their sports career into a career at a place like Intel. And then, as we'll see in the video, it also talks about how Intel is really driving change in the sports industry through the work that they're doing with technology. And so that can resonate with so many different audiences. And so as we talk about global storytelling, we interviewed folks in Oregon, in Los Angeles, in the States, in the UK, and in Poland. We did some in person, some virtually, some in a hybrid way, but it was a really amazing way to bring together stories from people around the world to create content like this.
Okay, thank you. You hit it.
I've been always looking for a place where I could develop myself, my career, apart from sports, and so it brought me to Intel.
I wrote my MBA thesis about athletes at high potentials for the workforce, and I was just amazed that finally the corporate understood the quality of talent coming through. I'm the technology and sports ambassador at Intel, which is all around what can we do to help athletes and teams be more successful? How can we enable teams and athletes to win medals? I have one guy who I've been working on all these crazy ideas we've had, how we can bring technology into sports. It's really nice to have a counterpart there who's also crazy about sports and has got the time and energy to do that with me.
The project I'm working on is with 3D athlete tracking, deriving information about athlete sprinting at such fine detail that it has never been captured before. And we're doing it all with cameras, just to see somebody's velocity that they're running at a training session over 40 yards is just really wild to me.
Being able to use that data in a way that will help from a training standpoint so that when you get to the competition, you'll have the best shot at winning gold.
The most exciting thing is seeing how a big corporate like Intel approaches completely different things and how complex it actually is. It's really exciting to see from that perspective, because I obviously know the athlete's perspective and I've got the other perspective as well.
It's just great to work for a company that is so dedicated to sports.
Seriously, the coolest project. Who gets to interview a 2-time gold medalist decathlete every day? So amazing. Thank you, Intel.
Oh, it's so great. Now, I know that you and the team also, make a big effort to make sure that those global stories are really inclusive and can be used not only for people who are English speaking, but there's some other things that I know that the team does. Can you share those strategies about telling the story?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think as you think about global storytelling, you also have to be aware of who the audiences are. And so thinking about captioning content in other languages, I think is really important. And then also interviewing people in their native languages. So while English tends to be what's spoken in business in most areas, I think, there's people who feel much more comfortable speaking in their native language and can tell a richer story if we allow them to say it in a way that's most comfortable for them. So letting them tell a story in their native language and caption it in English, again, so anyone can access those stories.
That's so great. And I love how we do that, and seeing all the types of different characters coming across, or different languages and English captioning. I mean, you can really do so many different versions of another video very easily, that makes it so accessible. And I know another thing that virtual storytelling has allowed the project team at Stories Inc. is to really show the virtual working from home hybrid working experience for the different companies. How I know that you do that in lots of different ways. There's lots of different ways to show that hybrid experience.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important as we think about telling your organization's story right now is to tell what it really looks like now. And so a lot of that is capturing work where it's done, whether it's in people's homes, or if the way that, your manufacturing floor has changed, the way you operate, like making sure that you're really demonstrating how work has changed. And so we've had the pleasure to be able to capture people working remotely and in their homes, again, around the world. And so we've recently had teams in people's homes in India and South Korea and Toronto and Brazil and all over the place. And it's so cool to see them in their home environments and, capture them with their families or their pets, or just like what work looks like now. And so I think it's really important as you think about communicating your culture and communicating your organization story, to do that from all different angles.
Yeah, we just published a case study on our website that shows some of the amazing photography that we've done for some of our clients, of people like working, from home, doing, customer service work literally in bed. I mean, working from their home offices. And so I'm gaga for these stories. And that's such content that can be used by multiple departments.
Yeah.
So we have talked about all the different ways about global, the different ways. Now, the hard part, can you give us some insight into how an employer brand person can rope in those other stakeholders?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure you're all like, oh, sounds awesome, but it's not easy. And like, it's so hard to even get a call scheduled with the people I need in my organization. So I get it. But I do think that having aligned stakeholder groups from employer brand to TA, D&I, business leaders really does help ensure that these organizational stories aren't discovered and shared in silos, but rather shared across channels and to different audiences to create that cohesive narrative to the audiences that you care most about. And so I think, while these other areas and departments have a nuanced understanding of their audiences, it opens the door for you to just ask a simple question of like, what cultural topics or what employee stories do you need to drive your work? And having some of those conversations so that you have a better understanding of like, what could internal comms use, what could DE&I use? So as an employer brand, as you're creating projects and you're, uncovering stories, that you're able to hit on lots of those topics so that you can turn right back around and say, I heard you, and here's a great content piece that hits on some of those things.
So do you have some ideas of ways people can get started? Some kind of like, different activities they can do?
For sure. So it requires obviously building relationships. And I think one simple way, so one step forward, is to just make one real connection with someone else in the organization, one other stakeholder. Maybe that's an internal comms, D&I, a business leader of an area that's growing rapidly. And again, ask them that question, like, what stories do you need to communicate to your audience, and work together to create that content. Then you've got a use case of how this works, of how you can build this relationship, how you can work together and have something that can be used in employer brand, can be used in TA, it can be used in other ways. And so I think, that's just one step, one relationship, build one strong relationship and do a project together.
Awesome. And then I know that you have some like creative ways to get like lots of departments involved. I love this.
Yeah.
Like I'm like lesson plans or something.
I'm an idea person, so I have 1,000 ideas a minute, and I always want people to do more interesting things. So a couple ideas also to get other people engaged in your organization. I think one cool way could be to hold what we call a storytelling summit. And so bring a few employee storytellers together, have an audience, whether you do this virtually or in person, invite those key stakeholders like to this summit, let them hear the stories from employees, from the employee. I think that can really create some aha moments where people see like, these employees are so multifaceted. There's so many things they can talk about. They can talk about what it's like to be an engineer, but they can talk about their involvement in the Pride ERG as well. And so it's really, I think, letting people hear stories for themselves and hearing kind of all of the story versus just like, here's a 20-second clip I've given you, but to really hear someone's full story, I think can create some of those moments where there's a lot of collaboration that can happen afterwards. And so have that summit, do a brainstorming session afterwards of like, what did we all hear and how could we all use that content together? That's one. The second is like, let's say you've already got a storytelling project underway. So you've got a day coming up where you'll be filming employees and you're hearing those stories. Invite some of these key stakeholders who you want to build relationships with to come join you for that day, not for the whole day. They can pop by for a half hour or whatever it is, sit in on one interview, just to sort of see your work in action. Like not only will it, again, hopefully create those aha moments of, wow, this is such great content that I want to use it too, but it can also just be a platform for you to really show the impact of your work because it's really amazing the work that you do. And so it can serve two purposes. And last but not least, we had a client a few years ago host a screening party for videos that we had created. We created like 20 videos for this company, and they held a party with popcorn and little Academy Awards and sort of all the fixings and helped to launch the videos that way. So had an event where a lot of stakeholders from across the business could come and see the videos, celebrate the people who shared their stories. But to this day, when we work with that client, that still gets referenced of those videos for that group. We want something like that. And so it really has had a lot of longevity in terms of the impact that event had. So I think there's really fun and creative and unique ways to get people involved. So to me, the sky's the limit.
Oh, thank you. I think we have the link. Bernadette's going to share the link to that kind of like story viewing party because we did that, just kind of an overview for them. So these strategies are so valuable. We're kind of coming to the end of our LinkedIn chat. I don't see any specific questions have come through for us. I know that we're going to be told if there's any. So before we get to any of those, if they come in, can you give us some parting words of wisdom on how to put this into action?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who watches content all day long of the work that we're producing, my big thing is like, just don't let your stories fade away. Find ways to repurpose them, reuse them for your own audience or for other audiences. And I think one way to do this is to just audit your current content, take some content pieces, watch them again with fresh eyes, think about what's one different way that I could use this for my purposes, and who's one other person in the organization who could also benefit from this, and share it with them. I think that's one great way to get started. And then again, that idea of building connections with other stakeholders in the organization and just asking them that one question, what employee stories would help you best communicate with your audiences, and just seeing what comes of that. I think offering that question and then offering to be a resource in helping connect the dots between different organizational stakeholders goes a long way. So that's about it.
Wonderful. So how can people connect with you, Jill, if they have a few more questions or they want to, learn about how to get started in putting these into action?
Sure. Yeah. Find me on LinkedIn, connect with me there. My email is super easy. It's jill@storiesincorporated.com. Reach out. I love brainstorming with our current clients or new clients about, what are ways that you can really enhance the work that you're doing. And again, like I said, I know it's not easy at all, but I think there's lots of power in the work that we do. So I'd love to help you figure out how to make it even bigger.
Oh, thank you so much. I know you're really busy, so thanks for, taking the time to share with our community. This is so awesome. And then we will be emailing you guys these assets. You can watch this on your own time, and you can follow up. And just some of our organizational storytelling guide. We'll just give you a link to the PDF and stuff, and you can follow along on our channel. Keep on following and let us know if we can help you bring any of your stories to life.
Yeah, I would just say even just using the words organizational storytelling or organizational stories, like in meetings you're having, like just plants the seed with people of like, oh, right, like we do have an organization story to tell, and we all play a part in that. And so just saying the words, right? Like drop them into meetings, and then eventually someone else will think it's their idea, and then it takes off. So yeah, I think just using the words is helpful.
Awesome. We're going to make this phrase happen, and really so we can help our friends in different companies get their work done and get people aligned with them. So, all right, I'm a fan. I'm on board. Thank you for joining today, and hope everybody has a great day. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.